Thank you for tuning in to the Texas Poison Control Podcast, where we share facts and information important to you. Hi, my name's Melinda Crockham, and I'm with the Texas Poison Center Network, and here we are for our second episode of our Texas Poison Podcast. Today, I am so lucky to have a guest from the DEA's office. His name is Eduardo Chavez, and he is a special agent in charge. He does many things that we'll probably get to learn about as we talk a little more, but he has actually been doing this for 21 years. That's awesome.
Long years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
For making it that long. So we're going to talk about Drug Takeback Day and discuss the opioid crisis. And so let's just, go ahead and get started. First off, why don't you just tell me a little bit about what you do and, how you got started and why you like doing what you do.
Sure. No problem. First of all, thank you. Thank you for having me. I think it's great to be able to sit here and talk about something that's really affects every household, every family and neighborhood. So it's really important, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. So the Drug Enforcement Administration, as some may know, we are a single mission agency. We investigate on a national and international level the highest echelon of criminal drug networks and criminal drug cartels across the country. We have a parallel mission with our pharmaceutical diversion control division that essentially is also protects the closed system of distribution for pharmaceuticals, so that you can ensure that the pills that are prescribed to you or the medication that is prescribed to you from a legitimate source.
Sure.
When you go to your pharmacy, you go to your doctor to pick them up, it's all going to be legitimate with the highest quality controls possible. So we manage those two levels. Obviously, our special agents focus on the illicit drugs,
the
cocaine, the methamphetamine.
There's a lot of those.
Right, yeah. And most recently, obviously, the surge in synthetic opioids that has affected so many.
Right. And even fentanyl is a major one now,
with fentanyl just unfortunately becoming a household name, the DEA, and in particular our office out in Dallas, covers all of North Texas and the Panhandle, in addition with our Houston and our El Paso field divisions, encompass the entire state of Texas to make sure Texas and a lot of the United States in general, we're trying to keep our neighborhoods as safe as possible.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Last year, for example, we had over 200 law enforcement agencies, well over 200 sites throughout Texas where you can drop off your unused or expired or unwanted medications.
So that's what I was going to ask is how does it work? So there's certain drop-off sites.
Correct. So one of the websites, if anybody's going to remember anything from this podcast, would be DEA Diversion, all one word, .gov. That is where you're going to find information on Takeback Day. You'll be able to find drop sites as to where your nearest drop site might
Closest location.
And then also, throughout. So well after Takeback Day, places where you can go, pharmacies or hospitals that have secure bins to be able to do that.
Yeah, I know I've seen before, like at Walgreens, there's a all nicely locked up, you can take them there. Do you find a lot of times, because I know that I've been guilty of this, is, that people keep their medications because, like, what if they might need them later? But also, we all know that medications do have expiration dates.
Right.
So what do you say to people like that they're like, oh, well, I want to get rid of them, but what if I need them one day?
I guess, for me in my mind, if you've been prescribed a medication legitimately by a doctor for a certain ailment and you didn't use all of it, maybe you just didn't need it anymore.
Sure.
And here we are, fast forward 6 months later. It's always a little bit of a risk to play at-home doctor.
Right.
And say, hey, you know what? I remember this, and
self-medicating, right?
That's right. And so what we found in that particular case, obviously, the best avenue is to seek, current medical care, and if you need to get a refresh prescription, then you do so. But one of the other threats is just simply unfortunately, people getting into it that shouldn't be, and
Right, right.
unfortunately, those are sometimes people in our own households.
Right.
They're friends. Maybe
Right.
you have a summer.
Teenagers and
That's
their
right.
friends getting it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
summer
heard of that.
barbecue party, and people are coming in and out, using the restroom, and
Kind of
maybe
digging through your medicine
they're rifling
cabinets.
through to see
You
what's in
never
there.
know,
And
right?
unfortunately, in many occasions, a lot of the interviews that we've done, some of the first-time users of prescription drugs are getting it for free. And they're getting it from a friend or family member, or they're finding it in a medicine cabinet.
Right.
And so that is a dangerous thing and a very slippery slope for everybody involved.
Do you see that more with like older folks holding on to more medications, and then it's like kids. When I say kids, mean like teenagers, then are going like to their grandparents' home, and that's where they're finding medications.
My grandmother has towels from probably the 1960s, especially dish towels, right? She
Yes.
never throws them away,
Yes.
So we've had to just be that sort of voice to be able to say, hey, grandma, this antibiotic, this pain medication that the doctor prescribed to you. Remember back in 1989?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and throw that away. And a lot of times it's sometimes just hesitation of, I don't want to just throw this in the trash. Somebody could get in it,
Right.
or down the drain. That doesn't seem safe for the environment. And so for
Right,
us,
right, and I'm glad you mentioned that. So why can't we just throw it down the drain, or why is it not a good idea just to put it in the trash can as is?
I think overall it's just going to be that safety and security of where it's going from there, right? So even in a trash, even once you put that bin out to the curb, you don't know exactly who's going to unfortunately be tearing through that.
Sure.
And then same thing, even just down the toilet, right? Is it's getting into our water system, and we don't want to inadvertently cause some consequence of polluted water or polluted soil because of that.
Is there any other ways that you tell people to get rid of medications if for some reason maybe they can't get out of their home to take it to a medication take-back
Right.
site?
The best thing for us is always to keep it locked away. Like, for example, over these last few years, unfortunately,
Right.
where we've been staying
the
at home
home.
and kind of going stir crazy, one of our messages was to keep it secure and keep it locked until we had the opportunity to take that. And now, in addition to pharmacies and hospitals, there's a lot of police departments now that are offering lock boxes the same as like a pharmacy to be able to drop off some of those unwanted and unused prescriptions.
Sure. And this is, I was just thinking, that might be interesting. Do y'all ever make like visits to homes to help dispose of medications?
We generally
for
do
people?
not. I mean, I know a lot of times, perhaps if an individual called their local police department, they might be able to have,
Yeah.
they have sometimes
Depending
citizens
on the
patrols and
size,
stuff
the
like that.
population,
What is,
whatnot.
generally though, it's advisable that friends or family members try and get them taken over there because they are medications that might be controlled substances
Yeah.
prescribed to you or to me.
Sure.
That is legitimate, but we would hate for then it to be somewhere else in somebody else's car. And
Get in the wrong hands.
that's exactly.
Talk about the population. Who would you say is the most vulnerable to, medication mix-ups or getting into the wrong medication, things of that nature?
Unfortunately, the ability for somebody to fall victim to addiction or to misusing or abusing prescription drugs or any other drug is unfortunately everybody. We have seen young people, we've seen teenagers, we've seen young adults, sometimes, parents, moms, fathers in their 30s, 40s who, maybe are being, a little bit generous with their self-medicating, and then seniors too, sometimes just unknowingly or, just overall, to me, anybody who might be vulnerable is the person that you love.
Yeah.
And that's going to be somebody who's 13, 33, or 63.
Yeah.
And to me, that's an important thing because you don't know how a particular drug is going to affect you.
Right.
We're all a little bit different, and so in that sense, people will ask sometimes, what's the most addictive drug? And for me, the answer is it's the one that's most addictive to you.
Right, everybody's different.
Which may not be the same one for me. So through prescription drug take back, through just generally our overall community outreach, and frankly the law enforcement aspect of our job, which is our primary mission. We want to be able just to not have you find that out. We don't want you to know what might be the most addictive drug.
You don't want to get to that point.
That's right.
Absolutely. So yeah, everybody should know about safety with medications. And I was that also made me think of a point. I remember I've had migraines my whole life, and they're hereditary. And so, but my grandmother, rest in peace, but she would always have hydrocodone for it.
Sure.
And so if I'd have a migraine, she'd want to offer that up to me.
Right.
But I don't take that for my migraines. But I think that some people do that because they think they're helping out, and they don't realize the consequences of doing that.
And unfortunately, I think overall as a society, we become very comfortable around taking a pill or a tablet or a capsule
to
make us feel better.
Yeah.
Many times I'll say, look, what do we do for our kids when they're sort of transitioning from liquid medications to being able to swallow a pill? And it's viewed as a positive thing. We have vitamins, we have supplements, and it's all that transition of you take this pill and it will make you feel better. Well, when it's under controlled circumstances, prescribed by a legitimate medical professional, maybe that's all true, but for us, I think that is what has sort of evolved into what we've seen with this controlled pharmaceutical epidemic throughout our country, of it getting out of control, especially with our opioids.
Right, right, exactly. And we will talk more about that in a moment.
Sure.
But so we kind of touched on this already, but I know one of the biggest sayings that we have here at Poison Control is keep things locked up and away. Is that a message that you all also share when you're teaching about medication safety?
Absolutely. I mean, it is, there are so many now lock boxes specifically for medication, on the market today, and so to me, where perhaps when you and I grew up, it was making sure that the child-proof caps on laundry detergent or soap, or you had the Mr. Yuck that I remember as a kid, growing up, that you'd put the sticker on there, right? So for me, it's now evolved, and if we have to have an emoji that relates to the kid to be able to do that, then so be it, right?
Yeah.
But it is out of reach, and it is locked up, and that is just as important for the inadvertent use, the inadvertent misuse, or the one that people are looking to see what you have, and they're looking for it to be able to, unfortunately, address some sort of abuse or addiction that they may be battling with.
You mentioned the lock boxes. Well, I mean, what's like an average cost of a lock box? I mean, it's not expensive.
I would imagine it's very nominal. I mean, I would think, even around $20 you can find something, or even find avenues, even a padlock, right? Even, if you have a safe that you use for your important documents, be able to do it that way instead. Almost any sort of barrier or one more step where it's going to make it just that much harder for somebody to get into it, right? I mean, just as much as we would buy child safety locks for cabinets.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking when you were saying that.
Or
I was like, that's a deterrent.
That's right. The plastic plugs on an electrical outlet.
They eventually get tired of messing with it and move on
That's
to something
exactly right.
else.
Right.
Exactly.
And for that person who's actually rifling through your medicine cabinet, I mean, if they see just that one extra barrier, they might not mess with it.
Yeah. So I know another thing that we do is nurses, doctors, DEA agents even can call in for pill identification. Do you find that you guys have to do that a lot to identify pills, or?
Unfortunately, throughout the course of our investigations, a lot of the criminal networks that we come across, or even some of the individuals who are addicted, unfortunately, we'll find pills in mint, bottles, gum bottles, anything but a legitimate prescription bottle with their name, neatly printed on it, So for us, when all of a sudden you end up with a bunch of white pills, for us, we have to treat those, frankly, in today's day and age, is they may contain fentanyl.
Yeah,
and we can get into fentanyl here a little later if you like, but we have to treat those like that's absolutely dangerous. You have to be careful with it. Treat it accordingly, right? And make sure it's secure and be able to dispose of it properly as well.
Yeah, well, definitely the fentanyl thing, that just really gets me, because every time I read these stories, a lot of times it's somebody that's like tried a drug for the first time.
Right.
And now they're no longer here. And that is just so tragic.
With counterfeit pills, and in particular the counterfeit pills that contain fentanyl, which is by far the majority of them on the streets today.
Yeah.
There is no experimentation. There is no, let me just try this and see how I feel. When we have a lethal dose that is as little as 2 milligrams.
Scary.
That one pill, that one time you try it just to see what it's like, could absolutely be your last.
Yeah. And I know, like, at my age, I think of cause and effect. So if somebody were like, here, no, I don't want to feel badly, or like go drinking. I don't want to have a hangover the next day type of thing. Right. But when you're a young teenager, you don't think about that, what could happen if it...
And unfortunately, I've seen those stories firsthand far too often. And some may initiate just from purely innocent point of view. Maybe there was a sports injury. And maybe your buddy in the locker room is saying, hey, I got these the last time I, twisted my ankle or my knee, and so my doctor gave me this. Why don't you just take one to be able to get through practice?
Right.
Well, again, if it's a legitimate pill that he's offering you and it came through the legitimate market, there's still a concern there.
Of course.
That wasn't prescribed for you.
Right.
And you don't know how your body's going to react. You haven't seen a medical professional to be able to sort of vet that pill is going to be safe.
Right.
But you can't tell.
Sure. And then, but on the other side of that, in regards to getting prescribed these medications, that's also a huge concern, right? Because then people are getting hooked on these medications.
And I think ourselves as the DEA, I think local law enforcement, and overall I think the medical community has really gone leaps and bounds in where we were even 5 or 10 years ago with just educating ourselves and each other and the community with regard to the addictive properties and how certain particular drugs should be prescribed. 20 years ago, it almost seemed like every time I would go somewhere, it would be a 30-day prescription for whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And I think now a lot of times there's a lot more deliberate thought into how many do you really need, or maybe I'm going to give you 3 days worth, and if you're still in pain, let's come back and let's have that conversation.
Yeah, those prescriptions aren't written as easy, and I think that also doctors, they're nervous. They don't want to get in trouble for doing anything wrong, and they're just trying to help their patients, but.
Well, and it's very important, to make sure that they know and that the legitimate prescription drugs that are out there to help with certain ailments are there for a reason. The pharmaceutical companies have gone through presumably thousands and thousands of avenues of quality control. And so doctors should not be afraid to prescribe these medications when there is that legitimate need, and be able to do so because it is helpful. It is when it gets astray, right? When it goes into buying it on the street corner. Right, totally. And these medications, that are controlled substances, all of them are not meant for you to take for the rest of your life, right? It's supposed to only be for a certain amount of time that you need it because of the addictive qualities, right? Of course.
Yeah. Now, what day is Drug Take-Back Day?
So April 30th. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Again, DEADiversion.gov. It's drop-off location. Also give you directions on if there are pharmacies or hospitals that just have sort of that rolling lockbox availability to drop them off. And one of the most important things to me is that it's anonymous. We receive
that's great.
We receive these grocery shopping bags full of medications that just are tied in a knot, and they roll down their window and they just hand it off, or they drop it right off in the box. No one's looking in there. No one's rifling to say, hey, who was that, or what pills did they drop off? We don't care.
Right.
You know, and in this particular case, whether it's capsules, pills, liquids, we're even taking vaping cartridges and vaping devices without the batteries, without that lithium battery in there. The only thing that we found out the hard way.
I was going to ask you something about
Yeah, the only
that.
thing we found out the hard way was, you know, the inhalers or anything that is
Yeah.
pressurized. That doesn't turn out well when we're getting rid of them. You know,
Oh, yeah,
they tend to be
imagine.
little mini missiles that
I bet.
explode. So,
Yeah.
and the same thing for needles as well. You know, no sharps.
Yeah. So what kind of resources do you provide maybe to help educate kids or teenagers, adults, different age groups?
So our website, our main website, DEA.gov, has a whole host of different websites that sort of cater to different categories. So some are for educators, some are for teens and young adults,
Great.
some are for parents, and it's all catered to a different approach to talking about the dangers of drug abuse, identification of certain drugs, things to look out for. Things to look out for in your child's room.
Yeah. So
or
are there videos
behaviors.
on there
There's all
as
kinds
well?
of videos. There's
Okay,
tons of
cool.
photos. You
Yeah.
know, and DEA.gov is sort of that hub where you can find other websites like Just Think Twice. You know, and some of even our resources from Operation Prevention, which is some curricula for educators and some of the community members like that too.
Gotcha. Well, very awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. For more information on Drug Take-Back Day or for any poisoning emergency, please call us at Poison Help 1-800-222-1222.